Here we are. We've got it. This is our pregame welcome. We really appreciate you being here with us. We've got Coach and Justin getting us ready for this game. This is a big one, boys. Obviously, it's a lot of fun going into this week. There's been tons and tons of coverage over at InsideTexas.com. We invite you to go check that out. But us having the night game gives us a little bit of an advantage. We have the opportunity to watch some other games today. What really struck your fancy today, Coach?
Oh, man, just seeing OU continue to kind of sink there. That ship is sinking. Other than that, man, just the 11 a.m. games wasn't a ton of action like there is now. Like A&M's playing, Mississippi State on the road. It's a pretty tight game. The Fighting Levies are sticking in there. Alabama and Tennessee, 7-7 game in third quarter. So it's like, man, there's a ton of good football leading up to what's about to be the primetime matchup,
I think this thing that I think often gets overlooked, and this is something that Connor was talking about in one of the streams earlier. It's like Levy's got a legitimate offense. I mean, he really does. I mean, he's putting up points. It's not like they're getting rolled over and doing nothing but field goals, and they're doing it against good defenses. So, yeah, the only reason I bring that up is if anything portends any news for Texas and their secondary, that might be an indicator, in spite of the fact that Mississippi State wasn't really on their A game, I would say, that particular day. Justin, anything you've been watching this morning?
I have, man. I got to watch a little bit. I've been on the road a little bit earlier today, but I was able to catch a little bit of the Schadenfreude coming out of Norman, right, and the debauchery that is Oklahoma Sooner football in 2024. Shout out to Joe Castellanato. Let's go ahead and get that extension revved up, because I think they're going to be working on maybe their third OC in 3 years, 4 years. Come Monday, come Tuesday, come January. You never know. And then, man, I caught a little bit of this Alabama-Tennessee game has been pretty good. Yeah. You know what I'm learning? It's hard to score in the SEC, like consistently. It's not hard to put up points, but it's hard to do it on a dominant level week after week after week, even when you have some of the best offensive components in the country. That's the takeaway I have from this game right now, because both defenses have really flustered Nico and Jalen Milroe alike. If either one of them were ever in the Heisman talk, they're not in it anymore after this game. Yeah. And so that's kind of my takeaway. Like, you can get 30 or 40 on an SEC team on a regular Saturday, but consistently, I don't see it happening. This is a good question because as Coach Williams can attest, I talked to him at 12:45 in the morning last night. Yeah. So let me go ahead and answer this one, LC, before we go to the next stuff. What is Michael Fasusi thinking right now, Chris Bennett? Well, let me tell you, he is a very committed kid. Okay, he's one of those types that he's in it for the long haul. Now, does that mean he's gonna couldn't flip down the road? No, I'm not. I know recruiting, and Coach Charlie knows recruiting. LC knows recruiting. You never know till you see that pin. He told me, man, I'm hearing from Texas and Texas A&M almost every day. I said, yeah, you're valuable. You're gonna hear from them every day until you put that pen to paper, bud. That's just who you are now. He thought that was funny, but he's thinking that he's going to start next year, which he will. And he's got a great relationship with Beatonball. He loves Bill Beatonball. But again, you can hold out some hope there. I don't think he's wavering at all. I actually talked to one of the coaches on the staff at Louisville last night too, after their game against Capel. There's no wavering there right now. And I'm not surprised, because Fasusi is kind of that kind of person. I know recruits all the time commit, and then they start looking on the other side of the fence. The grass may be a shade greener, a shade more NIL green. But at the end of the day, I think Fasusi really likes Texas and really likes Texas A&M, but there's a reason he committed to Oklahoma, and he's not changing that right now.
Do you think this rule change with the national or with the letters of intent, does that move the needle or change anything in recruiting?
Not at all. I think it's one of those non-move moves that the NCAA made. Like, hey, what did we do today? Well, let's change the thing where they don't sign anything. And then we can write it in an email and we can be productive today. That'll be our production today. Well, what's it going to affect? Well, it doesn't really affect anything. But it's going to look like we had production at the office today, so I can get off at 3:00. And so it's a non-starter thing. I think they're still going to have ceremonies, but not actually signing something. That is like the essence of National Signing Day. That's like college football and commitments every December and every February. So I'm curious to see, LC, how they're going to do that moving forward. I think it stays the same through this cycle. But next year, class of 2026, man, every year over the last 3 years, something little has changed about signing day. I don't know what's going to be this change, but it'll be something and we'll know it.
Well, I think one of the things, and I agree with you, that it takes that little element of the pageantry out of it all, right? I mean, that's the thing the kids look forward to. At least, I feel I'm interested to see what these kids do moving forward, because obviously their peers that were older than them got the opportunity to put on this little show, and now what is it? So I hope it exists still for no other reason than I think the kids, it's got to be fun for them. But I don't know if you guys are seeing this, but this kid, I got to tell you, this Army quarterback and Paul Wadlington's boy in Vandy, I mean, they don't necessarily, maybe not pass the scratch test, but at the same time, man, I would love to see those two there. I think they're just absolutely balling out right now. It'd be a lot of fun.
No, I root for the underdog, the people that nobody's really paying attention to, the kids that are not supposed to be there, the teams who are not supposed to have national spotlight. I love that. I feel like I've always been an underdog, so I root for the underdog guys. So I would love to see him in New York as well.
Yeah. Dude, first, thank you, Brett. Brett is a massive help to the channel, and we appreciate him being here.
Brett is our guy.
Yeah, Brett is our dude. Does this move the needle? Let's play the hypothetical game.
Okay.
Let's say BB doesn't make it through this season. Does that change anything for Fauci?
Fasusi, no, it doesn't. Bill Bedenbaugh, on the other hand, it would change everything. Mm-hmm. And something I was told last night that I think honestly needs to be noted: when Fasusi picked Oklahoma, Texas wasn't second. Texas A&M was, and so that's something else you kind of got to factor into that recruitment. All three of the big in-state schools, or the relative ones, of course, with Oklahoma being up north, they all were the best relationship builders in that recruitment. But Texas still had to kind of climb out of it. I don't think he has an emotional tie to Venables. Bedenbaugh, he has been talking up Bill Bedenbaugh for 2 years.
Right.
And so that would move the needle. If that guy got lost his job, I feel like that recruitment would be wide open.
To me, it'd be more of an issue of him going somewhere else than losing that job. I mean,
he would be somewhere else in 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe not that long.
If you're talking about an offensive line coach moving, let's talk about our friend Ian Boyd. I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512, or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description, as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call. So Tennessee just went up on Alabama. You and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago, Justin. I think we had a commenter contend that the SEC was down this year, and you and I were pretty adamant that this is what happens when you get parity. And this is a league now where it legitimately it's not top heavy. We're starting to get a lot more depth in the league in terms of quality of players. And I'm wondering, with that and with the recruiting in mind, do we see, if they do end up narrowing down or shortening the bench on these teams, taking away some of these players, that to me is going to spread that parity out even further and make it more comparable. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I say this a lot, and I know it sounds like a broken record, but college football, like any other sport, is cyclical. It is. It changes every 8 to 10 years. And in the last 10 to 15 years, the SEC has been a tremendous proponent of the game of college football. Some of the best schools, the top-heavy schools, have been the ones that are running the show. It was a matter of time before things started evening out. Now, the SEC is going to maintain that hold, I think, for a while, just simply because of the NFL draft. But you're going to have other schools kind of coming and going. You're going to, Alabama might take a dip now with Kalen DeBoer. It's hard to say. Kirby Smart, this isn't the same Georgia team that won a national championship back-to-back a few years ago. It's not anything close to on defense. And so I think, honestly, I'm here for the parity. I don't, nothing against Nick Saban, but 7 national titles, you are greedy. You're just being greedy. Now, if Sark turns around and runs off 7, we got a whole other conversation we're going to have, which I don't think that could happen. I think after a few, he'd probably head to the NFL. And that's for another conversation. But the SEC to me it's still as strong. It's just, I think the middle is a lot better than it was last year. And I think the bottom is as competitive as it's been in the last few years. There's just not that top team. If Texas knocks off Georgia tonight, Texas will be in that top tier. Texas will be that team. If Georgia wins, I think it's a jumble of like 5 or 6 teams all there, and they can beat each other any Saturday.
I want to thank Mr. Woodyard. Thank you, sir. It's good to see you, man. I appreciate you being here, and thanks for the super chat. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and throw those in on the super chat. And this is exactly what we were talking about at the top of this game. Like, Mississippi State has put up 17. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but y'all, they are 1-5. So it's not like these teams are completely out of these things. And I think that really speaks to, as you were just talking about, Justin, the depth of the SEC. But let's move over just for a second, because there's some stuff going on in the Big Ten right now that is pretty phenomenal. I don't know. Did you catch that Nebraska game, Coach?
Man, Indiana, the Hoosiers, what about?
Bobby Knight turned over in his grave.
Man, right? I saw some of the highlights from it. I was like, wait, that has to be wrong. That score cannot be right. Indiana scoring points like this, and I was like, okay, this guy's brought his offense from JMU, right?
And 19 transfers from JMU. 19
transfers, right? And talk about more parity. Indiana just got an influx of talent, just like Vanderbilt did, right?
Yeah.
So, man, it's good.
I have to say that if I had even a small percentage of the self-confidence that Kurt Signetti has in himself, I would raise to the level of mediocrity. I mean, it would be pretty phenomenal. It's absolutely crazy that what he's been able to do there. And he's got some big games coming up, obviously, down the stretch here, but it's a fun team to watch, especially one of those dark horse teams. So yeah.
LC, in what prop bet did we have Oregon and Indiana in the Big Ten championship in 2024?
We know. I don't think, does our boy Paul do prop bets? I don't see him doing that.
That's more than Kelson.
Oh, Kelson's in on the prop bets.
Kelson's good about that stuff. But I mean, think about that. Like, it's just that also goes into what we were talking about earlier about the conference, the SEC, and stuff like that. It's that parity to me that really stands out. And now that we're talking about an Oregon, Indiana Big Ten championship, like, where am I? That just says ass backwards, but it's reality.
Hey, Lando.
Hey, guys.
My man.
How you doing, man?
What's up? Can y'all hear me okay? Mike,
yeah, we can hear you. Where are you, man?
1, 2, 3.
Yeah. 4, 5, 6.
I hope this is mobile friendly, because I'm in the parking lot right now at Cosm, Dallas, which is where I took in the game last week as a spectator. It's
How cool is that thing?
Real quick.
Yeah.
It's unreal, man. I told a few different buddies of mine, I was like, look, don't go to Cosm to watch a game, because it'll literally ruin every other game watching experience, including being at the game live. So, yeah, I'm pretty much safe to say I'm ruined for the foreseeable future. But, hey, here we are. I'm on mobile today, so if this is lagging at all for any reason, audio or video, y'all shoot me a little heads up, and then I'll sign back off, and we'll reconvene later.
Lindo, do you pay per game, or have you seen any other games there today, or did you just now pulling up?
Landon, did you catch any other games today?
Oh, that was great. So, Lando, ladies and gentlemen, this is technology coming in hot and fast. Really good. Really good stuff. I mean, I have to say that this Signetti guy, he is really something else. It's hard to it's one of those things that, like, I really appreciate his swagger. Is it too much? I don't know. Sometimes it comes off a little rough.
He loves the clothes with birds on them. He is a bird-loving son of a gun.
Wow, that's some insight that you're just really not going to get anywhere else.
But his stuff is always looking good. His stuff is always looking good and fresh. So I give Landon a lot of credit.
So moving forward, let's just go really quickly. We're here for your questions, so go ahead and throw those in. But let's go ahead and switch over to this Georgia game as we've got going on here. So this is what we just posted on Twitter not too long ago. This is the pregame injury report. Fortunately for Texas, you do not see the name Isaiah Bond on this list, which is a very, very good sign. Tate Ratledge, the offensive lineman who's having really gnarly ankle issues for Georgia, is a game-time decision, though CBS Sports is reporting that he will be used in an emergency setting only. So you have to wonder how bad it has to get for that to come into play. But this is, fortunately for us, relatively predictable, unless is there anything that you're seeing on here, Coach, that seems out of the ordinary?
No, not really. And honestly, this late in the season, you expect guys to kind of be on the injury report, right? Like nobody's completely healthy, right? Everybody's beat up, everybody's banged up a little sore. So, but something that stands out to me every week, it seems like every time Texas gets ready to face a team, teams are missing key starters. Something's awkward going on. Like it's almost like it's lined up for Texas. It's how I feel a little bit. Every single week, somebody's missing somebody key, and it's like, man, okay, we're living right. This is how I feel. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I feel a little bit.
Georgia's coming in. This is something that we've been talking about all week, and Coach, I'm just curious if you have the inclination here, in order for them, what needs to happen for Texas to get to Carson this game?
I think one thing that Texas needs to do is disguise the coverage, but if you're going to disguise it, switch to a coverage late. This kind of going back watching film of Texas, they'll switch to what they're going to run a little early. But the young quarterbacks and everybody they face haven't been able to figure it out, right? So if you're in a cover two, and then you're going to switch to cover one with one high safety, Beck is smart to be patient, let the clock go down and say, hey, I'll let you get in your defense, and then I'll make an adjustment and hike the ball, right? So Texas has to learn to be patient and not show what they're in to Beck because he's a veteran quarterback who can read a defense. And I think you can kind of just get to him. Crowd the line kind of like Alabama did early on in the first half. But if he figures it out, don't be afraid and don't go away from it. Don't go play, hey, we're going to rush for it and be safe and play coverage, match quarters. Be aggressive, right? Challenge those guys. Challenge the receivers. Throw off the timing. And then, it doesn't hurt to bring Anthony Hill off the edge with Colin Simmons on the other side either. We saw that last week, and my God. You might want to put Trey Moore in there. I mean, you can put all three out there and let them go, right? Especially in pass rush situations. So just mix it up and keep them confused all day. Or try to.
Justin, is there one, or is there? You mentioned this on the roundtable, the idea that a couple of years ago we had a bunch of players in the stadium during that Alabama game that are going to be on the field today. Just from a personal point of view, who are you excited to see? Some of the young bucks out there. This is the big test, not only for obviously a person like Colin Simmons, who is a true freshman, need we remind everyone, but also the team at large. This is going to be an opponent that is going to challenge them for all four quarters of the game. Who are you looking to check out this week?
The recruits coming in. I mean, a lot of them are already there already. Some of them, one of the biggest ones, Justice Terry, came in yesterday for his official visit. He already got some of that tour and that stuff yesterday. Joseph Mbachu, defensive lineman out of Grayson High School in Loganville, Georgia. He came in yesterday as well. So they got a little bit of a head start. And Texas needs 2 more D linemen in this 2025 cycle. It's already a top 5, top 7-ish top class. It could climb even higher over the next month or so. Those 2 guys are guys I'm looking at because this class really needs 2 more D linemen, another corner, and then maybe best player available kind of guy. Yeah. And I think they have a handful of those guys, narrowed down. Michael Terry's there. And he's decked out in Texas stuff. And I had someone actually text me earlier, and it's like, that kid looks like a Longhorn. Yeah, I like Texas chances in that one a lot. And so he's a guy that's there. Riley Pettijohn, our guy, coach, knows very well. Ohio State commit out of McKinney. He's in the house. Him and his family showed up, and he's got two little brothers that are tremendous young prospects. And so those are two guys to pay attention to as well. And so, man, there's just so many. That 2022 game had some dudes. And I remember Kobe Black in particular. I said, what was the one thing that stood out from that game in 2022 against Alabama? He said, I felt like I could run out on the field and just start playing. And I thought at that moment, he's going to Texas. When he told me that, I was like, okay, I bet they get this kid. And there were a lot of them that day. And so that was a big game. And they lost that game, LC. You remember that?
Yeah.
They lost that game. And they still had a lot of success with those recruits. And so sometimes the wins and the losses get a little muddled. It's the experience. Yeah. It's the connections, the relationships, the atmosphere. And I think Texas is going to win that tonight, no matter what the score is.
Well, I think that's a good point you're bringing up about that particular game. Is that was all, and again, very early in the season for that Alabama game. That
second week of the year.
But that was ostensibly the first major test for Sark's program going into that. And they, I mean, you'll remember this was Quinn's second start, I think, when he got injured. So they were really showing out. And I think that's this, again, the parallels with this game. This is probably the first major test this year. And to have those recruits in is a major accomplishment, because again, one thing that we want to focus on here that I don't think gets talked about enough, and that's because we are part of the hype machine, whether we want to believe it or not, is the fact that we're playing for a bye. That's really what we want this season, right? We're playing for a bye. So I know that's not the sexy way to talk about these games, but a bye is still very possible regardless of the outcome of this. And I think that's, at least from a fan perspective, that takes the nervous eating away from me a little bit, so I don't have to jump on the Ozempic tomorrow, but it's probably still going to be pretty gnarly. Coach, is there anybody in particular that you're excited is on campus for this one? I know it's a long list, but I know you've been following these kids really closely.
I'm excited for some of the 26 kids like John Turntine, who's there. That's a big prospect, and I know Georgia's recruiting him heavy as well. Right, so now he gets to see two teams that are recruiting him heavy to see where he may fit. Like, Texas is really good. They're losing. Kelvin Banks is going to the first round, and some other guys. They might lose all 5 offensive linemen. I may have a chance to play for the team here, And so, kind of like Justin said, it's good for him to see the experience and see the atmosphere, the crowd. College game day was there. Tailgates, you can smell all the barbecue in the air, like everything you can want, especially the offensive lineman, right? It's there in Austin, Texas, man. So, but not just him, just a ton of the younger recruits, because they're the next guys up in the next recruiting cycle. And it's important to get on those guys early and make a big impression on them and their parents before anybody else has a chance to. And what other better time than tonight?
Just going around, this Alabama-Tennessee game, they're making it a game. We got 17-14 Alabama.
All of a sudden they started scoring when we jumped on the live. This thing was
true.
dull until
really
we went live.
Has there been, for you, Coach, outside of our fighting Hoosiers, is there a team that's really surprised you this year?
Oh man, that's surprised me. I mean, the obvious pick, you can say Vandy.
Sure.
I knew they had athletes, right? That part I knew. I faced them. I saw them last year up close. They got size. They got a ton of athletes, and then they brought in a ton of good transfers. And they got Jerry Kill, who's been known to coach guys up. But the way they're beating people, man, they're out physically people. Like, it's Vandy. And we're talking about them being a powerhouse and running down your throat and finishing guys like Alabama. I didn't expect to see that, because they're playing good defense as well. And so, I don't know, man. Yeah, I would have to give it to Vandy this year.
Army.
Yeah.
Army.
Well,
guys, Army's quarterback might show up to New York in December, guys.
Oh, yeah.
They still have not had been trailing at any point this year. That they are square headed for that 12 seed, guys.
Yeah, I mean, they are definitely my dark horse for that. If one of the service academies gets in, I'm just going to be. That's amazing. To me, that's the whole point of the expansion is to create a little bit more meritocracy in all of this, and I think that's fantastic that that these guys are going to get in. We've got A&M up 31-17 over, again, a 1-5 Mississippi State team that can still move the ball a little bit, but it looks like A&M is putting that one away. As we move into this, again, we're in the third quarter here, and USC is up 21-14 on Maryland. So I only bring that up because the entire Lincoln Riley saga of not wanting to play in the SEC. Now he's in the Big Ten. They're going to need an SEC coach maybe. So we'll see. We'll see. Is there one thing I think that we talked about a lot, and I want to continue on this, Coach, is this idea that obviously getting to Carson Beck is one thing. We've got the defensive line we need to consider there, but this to me is going to be a lot about those coverage sacks, that we're able to really shut them down on the perimeter and give those guys some time to get in there. If you had to say, because again, the narrative that's going forward here is that we haven't played anybody, we haven't been forced into situations that maybe make us a little bit uncomfortable, specifically in the secondary. And what would you, when people say that, how do you respond, and what are you looking for specifically from that secondary today?
Yeah, so there's two things. One, you can't control who you can play. You only can control how you play, right? And they've done their job. And so point blank period, kudos to the secondary, the entire defense, the way they played. But the second part of that is I do want to see this team kind of face some adversity, because you want to see what kind of team you have when you get punched in the mouth. Somebody knocks you down on the mat. How do you respond and get up, right? Because that's the true reflection of if you're a championship team or not. And I think Georgia, for the first time, they have a competent quarterback, an NFL quarterback who can actually throw the ball. Yeah. They got receivers who look like the receivers in Texas room as far as speed, right? They got some guys on the outside who can flat out run. And so for the first time, I'm looking forward to those guys competing and getting work down the field, right? Because it only is going to bode well when you get to the playoff space in Ohio State, maybe at Oregon, right? Who's going to take their deep shot? So if you can take it versus Georgia and compete against those guys and do well tonight, your confidence is going to go through the roof. And now you shut up all the naysayers and haters. Okay, we finally played somebody. Now what, right? But on the flip side of that, if you do get beat, hey, rearview mirror, next play, keep going, right? But that's what I'm looking forward to, seeing the guys just respond through some adversity.
Let's talk a little bit about – we've talked a lot about the defense. One of the things that we do have a fair sample size on is Sark's offense. We've played some good, maybe not great defenses in Oklahoma and Michigan, and we've seen what they're able to execute in that environment. What are you looking to see from the offense today, boys? We'll start with you, Justin.
What are we going to see? Oh, man. It's a good question. If Quinn is sharp, I think we're going to see a lot of fun from Texas. But no, from this offense, I think we're going to see more Trey Wisner than we do Jaden Blue, which that's actually kind of been trending for the last couple weeks. I think we see more of that. I think it's going to be one of those things, what Georgia's going to try to take away. And I think that's why Michigan and Oklahoma had such a hard time with Gunnar Helm, because they were so focused on taking away the speed, not getting beat over the top, making sure you had, bracket, making sure that those guys in the middle were just making the day. And so I'm curious to see how they handle that, because Georgia goes to the tight end a lot. They've got two really good tight ends, maybe three. Colton Heinrich's going to be a good tight end one day. They got some dudes there. And so I think that's something that they're going to look at. But look, ultimately, this game is going to be on the line of scrimmage, because if you look at the story I posted earlier at InsideTexas.com, come see us, come hang out. It really is the best time to be a part of that community. The NFL guys, there are 99 NFL players from Georgia and Texas on NFL rosters right now. 99. That number is going to expand tremendously in the next 2 years from this game. From this game alone, it's a ridiculous number, and it starts at the line of scrimmage. These offensive linemen for Texas, one of the best O-lines in the country, even though Georgia's D-line isn't the same, there's no Jalen Carter there. It's a little different than it was a couple years ago. It's still really good. 130 programs would take that D-line any day of the week. It is still massive with talent and guys there. And so I think that's how Texas ultimately wins this game. Quinn's got to be sharp, but if they can control the line of scrimmage, if Wisner can keep getting those yards after the first contact, that's the thing I've been the most surprised watching Wisner. It's not how hard he runs or how hard he hits the hole or even his cutback, because we saw that in high school, Charlie. It's taking contact and keep going. And that's that dog mentality. And that word gets used too much, LC. But I'm going to tell you right now, Trey Weiser's the type of kid that will piss in the neighbor's yard and eat his food out of an Alpo can. And that's going to be the difference. That and the line of scrimmage tonight.
I love that.
I want to, this is actually the gentleman or person that brought the attention that the field is mid this year. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because you know what? I totally agree with this sentiment. I think everything is going to be exposed in 30 minutes. We're going to know a lot about both teams at the end of this.
I agree with that.
The beauty of it is for Texas, it really doesn't matter all that much, right? I mean, we're going to learn. You either win or you learn, and we're going to learn a lot of stuff tonight. Yeah. Hopefully, we're going to get that education on the side of a W. But you're right. Look, we are not going to beat the drum that Texas has played a ridiculously difficult schedule. But as Coach said, you play who you play, and you have to perform at that level. We will know more tonight. I think I want to be very clear about this. Inside Texas has been very clear about this. There is uncertainty in this, and we appreciate that there is uncertainty in this, but there is also an eyeball test, and that's what we've been predicating a lot of this on up to this point. But you're absolutely right, going to get some answers here in about 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, what I want to go over, this is just a quick review, but before we do that, actually, let me just bring out, I would love to hear from our other sponsor, and these guys do a really good job with kitchens and baths. This video is brought to you by Luxe Kitchen and Bath. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook, and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring to life that dream vision of your special home. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team provides full remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today. Or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get a free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. That's LUXE. Or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Link in the description. If this is a recruiting question for both of you, and I think this has been talked about a little bit, starting to equate Texas to some of those Pete Carroll era teams.
Yeah.
And when I hear that, I think of the kids are playing loose, they're playing fast, they're playing fun, but there also is that Hollywood element of everything, of having the star power, as it were, on the sidelines. I'm just curious for you guys, how much, having, obviously McConaughey is a staple, he's going to be there, but having those folks there, what does that do? Does that move the needle at all? Does it just show that I just don't understand what that really would do for a recruit.
I want to hear Coach's take on this.
Yeah, I would look. It moves the needle a lot to me, because you got to be able to relate to kids, right? You got to know what they're into. At the end of the day, they're fans too. Even though they're recruits and everybody's loving up on them and they feel like they're on top of the world, they're still fans at the end of the day. So seeing celebrities, seeing music icons on the sideline, everybody who's there, it does a lot, because it lets them know, hey, this program is open. I got access. I'll have access to these same rappers, singers, actors, whatever the case, right? And so I want to be around that. I want to be around that vibe. I want to be around that culture. We're going to work hard. We get to have a ton of fun too, and we're winning. It says a lot. And parents are fans. Parents are big fans. So seeing that, being around that environment, being around that culture, man, it says a lot, and it does a lot for recruits.
You landed in the same place there, Justin?
Yeah, I'm with Coach. I knew he would know that, because he just came from a place where they play in Vegas. And so I think that there's a little stroke to that. But what's funny? I was watching one of those shorts earlier, and it was a Joel Klatt. They were asking him questions, and one of the students said, what's your favorite game that you covered this year so far? And he said, by far, Texas and Michigan. They said, why? He said, well, not just the atmosphere, but the star power. I walk down the sidelines, you see McConaughey, you see Derek Jeter, you see Michael Phelps. That's from Joel Klatt, a popular man in the media. Imagine what the basic fan thinks when they see that. Imagine what the regular fan, and these young kids in this social media age, it's all this info is just coming at them constantly. You're seeing these people that you see on your phone every day, and they're right there. And it doesn't get you a commit, but it shows you're big time. It shows you're relevant. And it shows ultimately you can be a part of what they're experiencing right now just by attending the University of Texas. Is it the biggest thing? No, but they damn sure pay attention to it. And so I think Charlie nailed that one.
I'm sorry, guys. We're probably not supposed to do this in this format, but I'm going to ask you a very personal question. Do you guys watch College Game Day? Do you guys watch College Game Day?
I do.
Okay, great.
It depends on how far I've driven the night before on a recruiting trip, but usually I try to.
I'm going to be very vulnerable with the American people here. There's some Disneyfication that's going on with ESPN. Where
I don't even know okay, now I do.
And what I mean by that is all the parents are dying. Okay, these NCAA features that they're doing I cry every time. They're the saddest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
And they do these features. These kids are having these really rough goes. And frankly, I just don't think it's fair. I don't think we should be in that deep of an emotional state right before we watch college football. I don't know if you guys have an opinion on that, but I think
Did you see the Kelvin Banks segment?
It was beautiful.
Dude, okay. If it's a normal game day and it doesn't have anything to do with, say, Texas, that what we're used to covering and we know on a regular basis, I think those are great little stories. I call them John Rinaldi's. They're they're good little tearjerkers, emotional pullers. I get it. But once you relate those things to Texas, I absolutely love it. And like Monica Banks, that story, Charlie and I, we have known that for 2 years now. And like people don't realize when she had to live in Oklahoma and her husband had to live in Oklahoma 2 years ago, like how much the offensive line's parents, the parents of the O-linemen on the team would help out. They would take turns coming back and forth. They would bring stuff back and forth. Like it wasn't just about the great story of this wonderful family that is Kelvin Banks, his mother, his father, his brother. It's not just that. It's what the program did around them. It's the camaraderie. It's the galvanizing of culture. To me, that segment was perfect because Monica Banks was in really, really bad shape. And if you ever met Miss Monica, I met her like 5 years ago. And one of her jobs used to be was prepping people for interviews. She would go through a process of helping people go through like an interview process. She was so outgoing and engaging. And I used to ask her, I was like, how is Kelvin so good at doing these interviews? And she's like, I taught him how to speak. I taught him how to say things. I'm opposite, Elsie. I like these stories, especially when they're ones that we can relate to. Yeah. And the stuff with the Banks family, just because Charlie and I have had a personal interest in this family for 5 years now, I love seeing it. Like that thing probably made my day.
I have to say, I loved it as well. I'm not mad at them. I cry every time. It's like the beginning of a Pixar movie.
You're supposed to.
You're supposed to, huh?
I know, y'all. I get it.
We're men. We're not supposed to.
I understand that. I'm okay crying. It's not the problem. It's just I just don't expect it. It shocks me every time when Tom Rinaldi's voice comes on.
Yeah.
Right.
The
Sorry,
Sam Hartman
for allowing me to be vulnerable
about his friend really got me. Oh man, the Sam Hartman, the quarterback last year for Notre Dame, came from Wake Forest. That story about his buddy and oh my goodness, they'll hit home with you. They know what they're doing. Rinaldi, them dudes know what they're doing.
Oh, they had the Michael Taft one a couple weeks ago.
Oh my God, that story of Jackson Coker and then also Jake Ellinger. That was part of it too because Michael Taft was very very close to Jake Ellinger. Right. And so those are so relatable, not only because we knew those stories in the background, but we see somebody tell it probably better than we do.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and personally, last year, J.J. McCarthy, his best friend, was an edge for UNLV who passed away in the offseason last year. And so they did it on game day, and it was just, and they tied it all together. But, man, it's very emotional, man, very emotional.
And football is an emotional sport. I was at a game last night that went 5 overtimes. There were 28 penalties. There were 2 fights, and there were 2 ejections. And the whole time I'm thinking, the coaches are screaming at every play. Do here, be there. The players are talking to each other, screaming, got to do this, got to stay here. It's such an emotionally charged game. When we get to the other side of the emotional spectrum, we're so used to it being in a game atmosphere, but now it's like, man, they're tugging on the other side of your heart. And man, they know what they're doing. I'm with you, LC. It's a different dose at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning.
Maybe it's the time of day that
maybe me. So. You're eating eggs and you're crying in your eggs, and you're like,
"This is a mess, man."
Are you okay? Like, no, I'm not.
Fine. It is but you know, one of the things that we've talked about, and this week in particular has been really great, especially, I don't know if any of you fans out there are Georgia fans. We really appreciate you being here. You guys have jumped on the board a little bit. You've jumped on our lives, and we just really appreciate you being here with this. But the one thing, the big takeaway this week is it's all about the narrative. It's all about the story, because there's so much uncertainty, because both teams aren't feeling super, super confident. There's that little air of uncertainty in there that we rely on the storytelling. We rely on the narratives and the human side of things in order to get us through it. Because again, at the end of this thing, we're going to have a lot of empirical data that's going to tell us exactly where we are. But up until that point, the stories are really what drive us. And I appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. And please check out their writing. If you haven't, go to InsideTexas.com. It's a great place to be. The reason we're a little bit shorthanded tonight is because we're having our live tailgate right outside of DKR. So if you're in that Austin area and you're part of that community, please go join us. But let's talk a little bit about those folks that aren't here with us. And these are their predictions. I just want to go over these a little bit. Justin, you are obviously on board with me for the round table, but this seems to be a pretty consistent vibe that the guys are going with here. I mean, it obviously, the one thing I will say that surprises me a little bit is Ian has them only scoring 17. And with an offense like Georgia, I think we're going to need to be prepared for them to put up a few points. What are your thoughts on that, Coach? I haven't got your score prediction yet.
I mean, looking at these scores, I'm right on target. A couple people have asked me, my score prediction, but I'm right there with Paul and Eric. They're at 31-24. I think Georgia can score. They're going to score more than 17. I just feel that. They have explosive athletes, man. Like, they have scholarship players too, and coaches on the other side who know what they're doing. So, and they'll probably give us a look that Texas hasn't seen, but maybe we can figure it out. Yes. And we have such an offense. We have a legit offense that it's hard to keep Sark under 30. It really is, right? Keeping him under 30, that's like, I don't know, man. Act of God. I don't know how you do it, but 31-24 is the score I picked, and 24 points though. That's very solid for a good Georgia team with an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I would say so. From just a scheme point of view, one of the things that we've heard Saban talk about, we've heard Kirby talk about, is the idea that now Sark has kind of filled his coffers with just depth and talent, that there's really not a place on the field that is safe if you're defending Texas. He's going to find the open athlete, and that open athlete could really extend the play. And my question for you here, Justin, is kind of tying this back into recruiting. We're seeing players like Gunnar Helm that are in their fourth year that have obviously been in the program longer, but what was the shift for you when Sark came and he started recruiting a different type of player? What was one of the first things that you noticed?
Man, that's a good question, which you're good at, by the way. I'm going to go back to 2022 Alabama, that game, because I really do think it kind of justified what Sark was trying to do. Even though they lost that game, and they shouldn't have, you don't take away safeties for an offensive penalty. None of that made sense. None of it. That was robbery at the end of the day. But it wasn't the loss. It was the atmosphere. It was the energy. It was, Texas playing. Quinn Ewers, before Dallas Turner popped him, Quinn Ewers was dialing.
Balling out.
I mean, he hit Worthy on one of those, I think it was on the field side on a vertical. And it was just like, oh yeah, he can do that. Oh, they can do that. Yeah. To me, that was kind of okay, I think they're going in the right direction, because after that first year, it wasn't that Texas couldn't score. It was that PK was giving up quite a few points. And all the talent they had was essentially on the defensive line. And there were people clamoring, hey, to get rid of PK and da-da-da. And it's like, guys, no, he's one of the best DCs in the country. Pump your brakes. And thankfully, Sark doesn't listen to anyone other than himself when he's, making those calls. But I think it was 2022 Alabama. I think that game, remember, we were wanting a night game, but big noon kickoff had the rights to it. So they got to kick it off at 11 a.m., which that should never, ever happen again between a team like Texas and Alabama. But to me, it was that game. And, just a while ago, you were talking about the scores and how they were all kind of similar, within the 10 to 12 range. Charlie and I asked over 40 prospects that are at this game today what their predictions were, and all of them have Texas winning. Some by bigger margins, a few of them by closer margins. I have done this a long time. I have never seen one between two top 5 teams, 2 top 10 teams, 2 really, really good teams. It's usually a moderate split there. Mm-hmm. These kids are seeing Texas wins, even if they do or don't. That tells me they see Texas in the highest light possible. Because against Georgia, I mean, really, this is how you gauge yourself. Beating a Georgia, beating Ohio State, doing what they're doing. You know, it's not their fault Michigan, Jim Harbaugh bailed out the year that the Michigan home and home was going to start. It's not their fault that all those seniors graduated from that team. And so, to me, that signifies it. When those kids from the 2022 game against Alabama were in the stands, they could envision themselves playing on the field. Texas hadn't proven anything up to that point. They really hadn't. Quinn Ewers was what? Charlie, his second game?
Yeah, second game.
Second game at Texas. I mean, and of course he gets knocked out of that one. And Hudson Card played admirably in the second half. I mean, really played well. They were a Bryce Young drive away from winning that one conventionally. Yeah. So I'm gonna go with 2022 Alabama. That's a great question.
It's one of the things that and again, I don't know if you guys are tipping over here, but
the 49-0 Oklahoma, that was another sign.
Does this, and I'm going to, again, we're just really exposing my emotional states here. When I hear you say, Justin, that everybody that you've talked to is leaning Texas, we are all here of a certain vintage. And as a result of that, probably have some PTSD going into this.
Yes.
Does that make you a little nervous?
Yes, absolutely. I had a conversation this week if I should pick Georgia because it used to be when we all picked one team, when we would do the round table before, we would all pick one team. It's like, guys, this is going to backfire. But this isn't your Texas team that we're picking now. Those teams in the past, those were legitimate concerns. Yeah, they should beat them on paper, but we don't know. Now I think it's more justified. Texas was so much better than Oklahoma on paper, but we were still a little like, I mean, this should be a blowout, but it is the rival. It is Oklahoma. You never know. I think it's the same situation here with Georgia. That's the biggest thing for me.
So this is, and I want to go back to this because this is something Drew has brought up. You know, he's equating this team, and VY said it in the pregame, also equating this team to that 05 team. And one of the things that Drew is pointing out here, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it's the idea of the depth. And what VY was talking about was just the looseness of the guys. Yeah. And I think, again, equating all that back to the style that Sark brings to this, maybe that influence is coming from Pete Carroll, but this does seem to me from the outside to be a pretty loose team that knows they're good. And I think when you know you're good, you can do that. So again, tonight is going to be a really great test for that. But when you're around this, and what are you getting from the recruits, Charlie, when you talk to them about their experiences on visits? What are some of the commonalities that you're hearing?
5-star culture, 5-star facilities, 5-star treatment when you get on staff. It's like VIP treatment. They go there and they're just amazed looking at Texas, the facilities, meeting the coaches, how they handle the entire visit. Like, man, like I could see myself being here. And one thing that's coming, I've heard a few kids say is, I can see myself living here outside of football.
Yeah,
you don't hear kids talk about that. Like that's huge. And talking to a current commit, Jamie French, when I talked to him back in February, that's one of the first things he said. I can see myself living in Austin, my family, moving here and being in Austin as well. Like that's huge, right? Yeah. And so it's a great place to be. Now that you're winning, it all just kind of comes together. And I think the team has taken on that. You see their coach lose. I don't know if you saw Stark on there on the Pat McAfee show. And he had the shirt up, FAFO. Like, yo, I love it. They have a
Charlie, tell us what that means.
Mess around and find out.
There you go.
Right.
There you
mess
go.
around and find out. And so the fact they have that, they're loose, man. They're having fun. You see them dancing. You see Quinn in end zone dancing after he scored. Like, just so relatable to the outside world, and they're bringing it to football. Like they're not playing uptight, and that's what you mean by playing loose. It has that Pete Carroll feel because that team is very loose.
Very loose.
It's just
very loose.
You can just see it in the team, and when you play like that, and you have so much confidence, and you play loose, you can play really well, man. And so it just kind of correlates all together, ties together.
Yeah, it is. You talked about this, and this is something that if we want to go to some of the national punditry that Colin Cowherd was talking about, this idea that, the SEC is primarily dominated by relatively small towns, right? And Austin is massive. It has major corporations. And when you're talking about this, a kid coming to look at a university and thinking that they could live there after school, I mean, with all due respect to my kinfolk in Starkville, I don't really think that's a similar sentiment that folks are giving there. So it does make a difference. The location. And I think this is important. We also all have Lambos. For those of you that don't know, that are out of the Austin area, everyone is administered a Lambo. So it's Justin, unfortunately, no longer lives in the Austin area. So he had to relinquish his, and they don't get him up in Dallas, I don't think, Coach. So it's a shame. It's a shame. I obviously don't live there anymore either, or I would have a Lambo. But yeah, everybody gets a Lambo. It's just the way we do things.
And they don't need them in Athens, Georgia.
They don't need them in Athens, Georgia. Although they're probably straight piping their Honda Civics, just bolting down the road, getting that taken care of, which is great. Good for them.
Straight piping.
Because you've got, hey, look, man, racing is family. I don't know if you've seen the documentary. Yeah, you've seen the documentary Fast and the Furious. You'll know that it is it's a familial space. So I don't begrudge those players that are running a little bit fast. All right, guys, we are coming up. We're about 9 minutes away, and Mississippi State is making a little bit of a game of it. They're down by 10 points, 6 minutes left in the game. Alabama is losing. For those of you that are behind in our stream, get a better system. I don't know what to tell you. This is pretty straightforward, guys.
Tell them, LC.
You got to let them know.
Not through the dumb stuff.
I know, Justin, you work hard during these games. You're on top of all of our social media. Now, hold on, you are. But here's my question. I know that this is a working game for you, but is there something you enjoy, maybe drinking, eating during this time to kind of calm the nerves a little bit?
Y'all are going to think I'm like the most boring, nerdy person. For these games, Joe and I have a lot of stuff we do on the back end. And so the best thing for me is coffee. So anybody that knows me knows I live at Starbucks. I spend an inordinate amount of money there. The people know me, like most places like that, stuff like that. So I drink a lot of Starbucks. And I'm a big fruit snacks guy. I never knew about fruit snacks until I had a kid.
Okay.
And then when I had a kid, I'm like, where have you been all my life? They're amazing. They're so good because I got in trouble because, we get a couple boxes, one for, our son to put in the I'd get up in the middle of the night and I'd eat 4 or 5 packages because they're so good. So I figured we don't have time to eat like a meal during any of this. So I will snack on fruit snacks, big old glass of ice water, a lot of coffee because we'll be right until 12 or 1 in the morning. I'm curious to hear what you two guys indulge in during game days.
Where do you land on that, Coach?
I really keep it simple because I don't get as nervous. As long as I got me a glass of water because my mouth is going to be dry because I do so much talking. I'm yelling I'm calling out plays as I see it on what we should run and what you should do here. This is what they're about to do. So I over talk, and so I got to have a glass of water. Other than that, I'm good, man. Not much needed for a game.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that.
There might be some indulging after the game, but you got to stay right because there's just too much stuff to take care of. And if Texas gets this win tonight, buddy, it's going to be a long, glorious night.
Yeah.
I have to say, for those of you playing at home, when you do reach a certain age, tequila is great. It's really, really nice. It's a clear product. I would just use tequila. That's my professional medical advice moving forward. I'm pretty sure it's hangover free. I don't know. I've really tested that, but
is that like Dr. Phil medical advice?
Yeah. I mean, I have a master's instead of a PhD or a doctorate. So yeah, I think that's the only
master's
difference.
in playing defensive line for North Texas.
Correct. Dude, all right, yeah. Look, we've got some big games coming in. So Maryland is about to upset USC. It looks like
Illinois beat Michigan.
Illinois beat Michigan.
Texas' best win still looks kind of weak.
It sure does. Yeah, we've got to establish a best win today, frankly.
Yes.
Because I think what happens is the second we jump out of the conversation as being one of the top teams, then you get into this middling thing. But the point is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just win out, get into the playoffs, and then it's all anybody's game, right? You're playing for that bye. The objective here is the bye. Try to get that bye. All right, boys. Well, look, we want to. We've got a good group here. We really appreciate all of you checking in. I don't know if anybody out there knows this, but when we started, we obviously started with nothing, zero subscribers, and we are now up to close to 15,000. And we really want to say that we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for that. You guys have been fantastic. If you are on the YouTubes, and I know that there are about 134 of you, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you guys are our friends over at Twitter, you're watching right now on Twitter, please come on over to YouTube, like and subscribe over here. We really do appreciate all of this. Really, really helps. Because Starbucks is expensive and Justin needs to not only feed his amphetamine habit, but he's got to feed his kid. So if you can like and subscribe, totally something free for you, that would be really helpful for all of us. Any closing thoughts from you guys as we get ready to give you guys an opportunity to rest and get ready for this next game?
Let's get crazy.
Yeah, man. I'm excited. Let's get it, man. Let's strap it up. Let's kick the ball off and go hit somebody in the mouth. I'm fired up. Like, let's go. I'm good for one play. That needs like put me in. That's how I feel right now, man. I'm ready to go.
Hey, yes. Look, I'm all about the 6:30 game, 7 o'clock game. I'm all about that. But we're getting older. I like those games a little earlier in the day, but that's okay because tonight's different. Because tonight is going to get crazy in DKR.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Buckle up, enjoy it. It's gonna be one for the ages. I'll tell you that much. We're gonna learn a lot tonight.